Welcome to the Ducks Unlimited podcast, the only podcast about all things waterfowl. From hunting insights to science-based discussions about ducks, geese, and issues affecting waterfowl and wetlands conservation in North America, we bring the resource to you. The DU Podcast with your host, Chris Jennings.
We're lucky enough to have Chef Jean-Paul Bourgeois here again. What is your perfect day of duck hunting?
Well, I mean, there's a number of hunts that come to mind when it comes to the perfect day, and none of them were limiting out. So that's certainly not. Although limiting out is a great time, that's certainly not the point of a perfect duck hunt, I don't think. And living in New York, you know, I'm so fortunate to have friends that are still avid duck hunters in South Louisiana that when I'm down, I'm making 2, 3, 4 hunts, you know, a week when I'm there in different properties. And the last great duck hunt I went on, we had the perfect environment and perfect season. We just had a cold front go through the night before. So it was nice and chilly. It was a slow season last year, but the fog was just rising above the water, about 6 feet above the water. And we were in a very blue-winged teal populated area. And those teal were already flying at 10, 15 feet, you know, right above the freshwater marshes. But with that fog, they had dipped down in that fog and they saw that decoy and they flared and cupped right in. And you know, it's always fun shooting teal. And we went along with that morning. You know, it wasn't wham, bam, thank you, ma'am kind of morning. We had to work for it still. But we were down to our last two. Golly, and it still pains me to talk about this. We were down to our last 2 ducks, and it was getting late. You know, in the old adage, like, big ducks fly late. We always laugh at that because, like, we never see no damn big ducks fly late. So, but this time there was two mallards. And again, like, it wasn't that type of season where we were chock full of mallards, right? We were chock full of ringnecks and pool dew and blue-winged teal. And but these 2 mallards, and man, we're down the blind. We got, like, this is gonna be our last 2. We got 3 shooters in the blind. We got 9 shells and you know, loaded up. And we're calling them in, and they're circling, and they come around like our backside. They're still about 30 yards up, and you know, Jay, my buddy Jay, who was doing a lot of the calling, he had the call to shoot. And when he called for him, we should have had, but like, we put 9 shells in the air. None of these ducks fall. And then we're like, oh man, that was our last 2. We didn't see another duck after that. And to make it worse, of course, like around 9 o'clock is when all the bald eagles come. There's a family of like 3 or 4. And it's kind of like Uncle Sam taxing you, you know, like the bald eagle comes and steals one of your teal, taxing you. And that was a good day because it was fun and whatever. But it ended on a note where, like, how do we not finish off these 2 greenheads coming right above me? But you know what kind of polished that whole day off is my buddy and Jay and I, we had dropped some folks off at the camp, and I had to go home. Back to my parents' house in Thibodaux. So we were going back to launch, but we made a stop in, and he hunts off the Intercoastal Canal in Houma, Louisiana. And there's a little bayou that jets off, a number of little bayous that jut off of that canal. And we ducked into some cypress, and we had a little lodge skillet and a little Coleman burner, and we had some teal that we had cooked, like we kind of spatchcocked, if you will, but took out the backbone and just cooked both. But we had some boudin, which, for those who don't know, is a Cajun rice sausage made from pork liver and pork, and some bacon. And we didn't have any seasoning at all, but we just kind of browned everything up in that skillet together, the boudin, bacon, and ducks, and all the seasoning from the boudin and all the salt and grease from the bacon just flavored that fresh teal. And that was one of the best wild game meals, you know, I've ever had. And that, you know, that it's amazing what food can do, right? And part of like a good restaurant, part of the sign of a good restaurant is when you walk in to a restaurant feeling one way and you walk out feeling much better, right? You're not just full, but you have this feeling of like, God, that's where I was supposed to be at that time and place. Mm-hmm. And I almost think we missed those ducks for a reason. Like, we were supposed to go into that little bayou and cook those birds and have that time, because that really made me forget. That made me leave that hunt better than when I came in. right?
Yeah.
And although those two mallards flying overhead about 30 yards up and blasting 9 shells and seeing none of them drop, that still somewhat haunts me, no doubt. But what I remember from that hunt is me and those 2 guys eating duck and boudin bacon in that boat. And just the next day, look, I love duck hunting. Nobody said I was a good shot, all right? Just the next day, we go to Gaydon, Louisiana, famous for, speckle belly, snows, big ducks, rice on flooded rice fields. That's their big agriculture in West Louisiana. And look, I have my waders on. I'm carrying, my shell bucket, shells, shotgun in my pack and in my back. And we are drudging through flooded rice fields, sinking up to my hips in a mixture of cow patties and rancid mud. And I'm like, my buddy Scott McGee, whose property we were hunting in Gaydon, I said, man, I ain't never doing this again, man. You got to get some like ATV out here or something. I don't know how I'm gonna get back, So, but we marched our ass out to that blind, and we hunted. We didn't shoot a lot of ducks, but at the very end, and I saw. I was like, and am I in like Groundhog Day right here? Because 2 speckle bellies were calling in. It's about the same height, same ways up, same kind of shot. And it was our only 2 shots at birds that day, and we missed them both. None of them fell. And I'm like, man, but still, that was one of those hunts where the jokes and the laughter and the storytelling we had in the duck blind. I mean, that's what I remember. Like, that's the feeling that I remember. Of course, again, those speckle bellies will haunt me, just like those mallards the day before. But to me, like the perfect duck hunt is any one that you're hunting with friends and be able to like reconnect after years and years. I live in New York. Nobody else lives in New York. So the time where I connect with them is in the duck blind, and that's always the perfect hunt for me.
Chef John Paul, man, I really appreciate you joining us today. This has been fantastic. That's a great story. Best duck hunt ever. That's fantastic. Why don't you let people know where exactly they can find you and some of your recipes?
Yeah, man. You can find me on Instagram at chefjean_Paul. You can comment, shoot me a DM. I answer all of them. So if you got any questions about recipes, techniques, anything I can share, I'd love to. Just shoot me a message on Instagram.
All right. I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope you all enjoyed the show today. Thanks to our guest, Jean-Paul Bourgeois, for joining us in the studio, and thanks to Clay Baird for producing the DU podcast. He does a great job with it. I'm Chris Jennings. Thanks to all of you for supporting wetlands conservation.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the DU podcast. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the show, and visit www.ducks.org/DU podcast for resources based on today's topics, as well as access to more episodes. Opinions expressed by guests do not necessarily reflect those of Ducks Unlimited. Until next time, stay tuned to the ducks.